close the eyes. Taking a nice breath in and a nice breath out. And just constantly connecting and reconnecting with the self. As you breathe in, connecting. As you breathe out, connecting. And whatever little distractions come between the connections, just letting them arrive and leave without your interaction. Don't grab onto them, don't push them away. Just see beyond them. See beyond their limitations and into the wholeness of your own self. And with that inspiration, draw the hands together in the front of the heart. We'll lift our voices in one Om and the All Beings mantra, taking a breath in. One Om and the invocation mantras, taking a breath in. Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha Hari Om Ganana Antva Ganapati Gum Havamahe Kaving Kavinam Upamashravastamam Jyestarajam Brahmanan Brahmanaspata Anashrinvanuti Besidha Sadhanam Mahaganapataye Namaha Prano Devi Saraswati Vajebhir Vajini Vati Dhinama Vitriyavatu Ano Devo Brahataf Parvata Da Saraswati Ajata Gantu Yagnyam Havan Devi Jujushana Ghritachi Shagmam Novacha Mushati Shrinotu Vagdevyai Namaha. And gently releasing the hands down. So I was thinking as we were going through the opening, for some reason, video games came to my mind, and it's like that connection is like playing a video game. You know, the kind where you're trying to get from point A to point V, and you've got all these obstacles coming in, and you've got to maneuver around the obstacles and stay focused on the goal. And that's like this practice, right? Where we stay focused on the goal of connecting with the breath, connecting with the self, connecting with divinity. And we have to maneuver our way around, between, or through all of these distractions of life. It's just amazing. And it's not uncommon for students to ask the question of, well, what are the distractions and where do they come from? And how do we handle those distractions? That's probably one of the most important questions that students will ask. And they'll ask it at all places on their path. So it's not like you've been practicing for a year, you asked that question early on, you got your answer, and now you never need to ask it again. You'll ask that question repeatedly over and over and over and over and over again. What are the obstacles? And how do I maneuver my way around or through them? What is the key to that? And how do I recognize those obstacles? How do I know what's really an obstacle and what's not? And so in this regard, we've been very blessed in all of the scriptures, from the Bhagavad Gita to the Devi Mahatmya, that we have list after list after list of obstacles that come to us, of behaviors called ripus that we should most definitely avoid, because those behaviors are the breeding ground for distractions and for obstacles. And so today I thought we would go through a couple of those from the Bhagavad Gita as they're listed in the Bhagavad Gita. And interestingly, there's a parallel here between the Bhagavad Gita and the Devi Mahatmya. There's many parallels, but this is the one I'll bring to light right now. The first of those behaviors, those ripus, that are a breeding ground for distraction is desire. That's the first one. And we know that one of the primary parts of the battle that Mother Durga had to encounter as she was defeating Mahish Asura on the battlefield was when Kali interacted with Rakta Bija. Rakta Bija was the biggest and most fiercest, potentially, of all of the demon army. And that's because he was the breeding ground of desire. So his boon was such that if a single drop of his blood touched the ground, 10,000 more of him would come up. And that's what desire is. Desire is not easily conquered in any way, shape, or form. For every desire you think that you have conquered, you will have at least 10,000 more take its place. Or one that seems like 10,000 more. If you quit smoking, you'll start eating. If you say you're going to stop drinking, then you'll start doing something else, coffee maybe. If you say you're going to abstain from sex, then you'll start something else. You are an entire ecology to yourself, an entire environment, a natural environment. And in nature, there are niches. And nature, the mother, does not leave any niche unaddressed. It will be filled with something. The question is what? And so if you move through your life thinking, I can conquer that desire and I don't have to worry about what takes its place, then you've only got a very small part of the picture within your awareness. The larger part of that picture is that you need to think about it and consider, what will I put there instead? So that if anger is the desire, because sometimes we desire anger. If anger is the desire that I'm going to work on adjusting or eliminating to some degree, healing to some degree, what am I going to put there instead? What am I going to fill those thoughts with? How am I going to evolve them? How am I going to change them? What thoughts am I going to put there instead? But students often feel that, well, I've had a spiritual counsel session, or I've gone to anger management, or something along those lines in between, whatever. And they come back and they say, well, why do the thoughts keep coming back? I say, well, what are you doing instead of having the thoughts? What do you do when the thought starts to arise? Do you even recognize when the thought starts to arise, or does it grab hold and then it's too late? What is your go-to? I didn't know I had to have one. Well, yeah, of course you do. Because you're an ecology all to yourself. And you're filled with niches that nature is just waiting to take and fill with whatever comes its way. So if you don't want to be out of control and susceptible, highly vulnerable to the randomness of nature, then you need to start thinking about how you will curtail your desires and what you will put there instead. Now, Swami Satsang was known for saying, if there's going to be one thing that you grasp on in this lifetime, let it be your inner peace. So let that be your go-to. Learn what it feels like. Thich Nhat Hanh has a beautiful meditation on anger. And it's a beautiful meditation. It's not a dichotomy. It's a beautiful meditation on anger. Because he said anger is not something to be shunned or avoided. Anger is a natural state of being. The problem is you don't understand it. Therefore, you fear it and have a reaction to it. So if you sit with it, if you learn about how it arrives, how it inhabits your body and mind, the changes that it brings about, then you'll understand its character. And once you understand the truth of its character, then you can begin to make wise choices. Anger is coming. Okay, so instead of lashing out, I'm going to go in and I'm going to feel this. And I'm going to intend for my own healing and the healing of this energy. I'm going to intend for a deeper integration. And the metta meditation is beautiful for that. The metta meditation is the absolute cure, it's the remedy for anger. Practiced over a long period of time with little to no interruption and great enthusiasm. Practice one time, maybe you'll get a little benefit, but it won't last very long, and it won't have the stronghold that a day-to-day practice has, an hour-to-hour practice, a minute-to-minute practice. You're driving down the street and somebody cuts you off and you feel that anger come up because you just tensed, your hands are gripping the wheel now and your fingers are turning all kinds of white colors, right? And so you say, oh, may all beings everywhere be peaceful, free from suffering. Metta, 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 metta. In a moment, something that short and quick can be so powerful. And in a moment where you can sit down and do the entire meditation, picturing the face of this individual, recognizing their suffering and recognizing they can be happy too, in a peaceful way, and then wishing them, may you be safe, may you be healthy, may you be happy. So whatever your time allows for, either the quick or the extended version, metta. Metta is the direct remedy to anger and all that it brings about. I jumped ahead because anger is actually one of them on the list. But anger is also a desire, because sometimes we want to be angry. And any want is a desire. We want to ruffle feathers. We want to hurt others and ourselves. We want that. So therefore, it is a desire. And the first question to be answered, of course, is why on earth do we want that? Because we don't feel we have control over anything. Over ourselves, over the condition of the world around us. We don't feel that we have control. We feel that we've been gypped somehow, robbed of our happiness, and why should we be the only one to suffer? So the desire that comes in is the desire to share my suffering with everybody else. And so that desire quickly becomes an anger of sorts. Other desires, of course, we can name 10,000 of them, lust as a desire. And the things that lust causes us to do, the behaviors it compels us to take part in, the harm, disregarding other people's feelings, other people's agency, other people's authenticity, for the sake of having our own needs met, our own wants met. So lust is huge issue within that realm of desire. We need to understand what lust is, because all lust is the externally oriented statement of I myself am not enough. I need that person over there to make me feel whole, to give me some satisfaction, to answer some long-held belief of need or want in my own self. And then we run after that. And it's not a conscious thing. It's very primal, and sometimes it's pheromonal, it's very primal. But then we have the wisdom, we have the agency, we have the ability to stop ourselves and to say, well, what do I even know about this person that I'm looking at? What do I even know about them? Do they have a partner? Am I forcing myself into this position where they're going to be confronted with what I want? And I'm not even considering what their life might be like or what they might want. Am I imposing some kind of harm in that? Is there a way for me to just appreciate them? Appreciate the beauty of their energy, the beauty of their being. Appreciate that there's people walking around in the world who have such charisma, and that they could be using that charisma for good. Let me not get in the way of that. Let me not get in the way of that. If the divinity has chosen to give you some kind of charisma, use it for the betterment of society, not for the harm of society or others. So we can make the choice to take lustful feelings and turn them on their head and say, I'm going to utilize this energy to cultivate appreciation, to cultivate gratitude, to cultivate wishes for goodness. It's not easy at all. Did you have your hand up before? Did you? Okay. Does that make sense? It's not easy. But we still do. And, we live in a world where energies like lust are just compounded by consumerism, and advertisements that tell you should be lustful. Song lyrics that tell you that these things are okay. That's your power. That's your empowerment, is to grab hold of your sexuality and stick it in everybody's face. That's not empowerment. No, it's not. It might be one way of getting your anger out a little bit, but it is such a harmful way, because when you are so busy trying to prove your own voice to others, you are not proving it to yourself. All you're doing is screaming out to hit other people with it when you don't believe it yourself yet. And you think that if you scream loud enough, that someone will come and say, "Wow, you screamed really loudly. What you said must be true." And then you'll somehow be vindicated by that. But the reality is you won't be. Because the moment that one person says something like that to you, you'll look for another and another and another and another. You'll still be externalized in your desire to have somebody validate you. You'll scream louder. You'll try the next product or the next outfit, or you'll sing the next song twice as loud. These harmful words wrapped in wonderful music. Such an unfortunate thing. And I know people would say, well, don't you think that it's about time that women had their voice? Like, yeah, I do. Absolutely, 100%. But is that having a voice? Is that really? Where did they go from there? Where do you go from there? From the place of hypersexualizing yourself and going from being, a victim of society's expectations of you to a victim of your own expectations of you. Where do you go from there? How do you truly recover yourself now that you've been abused twice? Once by them and once by you. At what point do you say no more? I'm not going to hypersexualize myself, victimize myself. I'm going to learn how to have integrity within myself, respect for myself, love for myself, concern and care for myself. Yes?
And from a man's
yes, please.
Point of view,
thank you.
And my name is Ian.
Hello,
for
Ian.
Everybody. That type of thinking is very damaging especially to young men.
Yeah.
And it draws young men in. It just sucks them in, and they can't help it because the way our hormones are and everything. But that is not the way of man, a grown man who has matured and moved past that point and been guided correctly by the correct people to think beyond that. That's not the way a man wants a woman to be. They want a woman to be respectful of themselves and everyone else around it. And it's not good for anybody on any level. That's a very primal thing, like you were saying.
Absolutely. And I agree that at the heart of the matter, the only thing that any person wants, needs, no matter whether male or female, is a healthy partner. A person who is capable of holding space not only for their own self, but also for the partner. A person who has a level of confidence in their own self that is not egotistical. A level of love and care for their own self that allows them to truly care for others. A level of respect for their own self that allows them to respect others. So whether it's a male or a female that we're talking about, I'm so glad that you spoke up, Ian, so thank you. But whether or it's a female or a male that we're talking about, it's the impression that it leaves. It's the violence that impression can lead to that we need to be really mindful of. And so this first ripu offered within the Bhagavad Gita of desire or lust, this is huge. This is huge. Because we're bred into it, we're consumerized into it, we're sold it as a way of life. And it's just not that. It's a way of suffering. That's what it is. And it's a way of suffering that will only bring about more violence in the world from both men and women. From men and women. Shouldn't a woman be able to be sexual in her own right? I'm not here to tell anybody that they can't be sexual in their own right. What I'm saying is, do you know how you're hurting yourself? Do you know how you're harming others? Do you understand what you're asking for? If you can sit there and tell yourself, yes, I understand, and I'm not harming others, and I'm not harming myself, what you do is your business. It's your business anyway, It's not mine. But what I am here to ask is, have you looked at your choices? Have you actually considered what chasing after that person means? What it does to you? How it leads you to feel? I remember being in junior high maybe, and there was this boy in my class who I really liked. And so I would always go out of my way to be nice to him and to talk to him. He didn't want anything to do with me. But I would always go out of my way to be where he was going to be, to go to his games, to try to make myself be seen by him. And the only thing I ever walked away feeling was discouraged and down on myself. And even when he did pay attention, it wasn't the kind of attention that I wanted. But it was some kind of attention. So we have to think about that, because what we're seeking is not often what we need, it's what we want or we think we want. And that's going to show up in a plethora of ways that are most oftentimes not healthy, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Well, then can't you desire a healthy partner?
Of course, absolutely.
And that's okay.
Perfectly fine.
The desire, because that's why I'm kind of like...
Desire a healthy partner, yes. But understand also what that means. Because health is not something that any human being actually has. So what is your definition of health? What are they allowed to be? What are they not allowed to be? What will you tolerate? What will you not tolerate? Now, in Ayurveda, health is all the tissues of the body are functioning properly. All the doshas are functioning properly. The mind is content and peaceful. There's a sense of devotion about the individual. They're generally happy. There's more to it than that, but that's the gist. Mm-hmm. So what part of that are you willing to put off to the side? Because nobody fills that definition. Maybe the saints, have it all down 100%. But most people are lacking in an area or two. So I want a healthy partner. What if they get cancer? I want a healthy partner. What if they have a high-stress job that causes them to enter into depression 5 years from now? I want a healthy partner. What does that mean to you? So that's what I'm saying about asking yourself, what is it that I'm saying? What am I asking for? What am I looking for? Why am I speaking these words? Why am I singing this song? Do I know what this song is telling me? Do I recognize the impressions that it's leaving on my mind? I want a healthy partner. So that means somebody who never gets mad, somebody who's never irritated, somebody who never judges me, somebody who never stops me from going out with my friends, somebody who doesn't want to spend a whole lot of time away from me, but leaves me alone when I want to be left alone. Somebody who always holds the door open for me, but never unempowers me to open my own door. What's a healthy partner, And I think that's just so fun and crazy, because we, generally speaking, the women's empowerment movement has made such a big deal out of someone holding a door open for you that instead of saying thank you, We say, I can hold open my own door with my 5 bags of groceries and a kid on my hip, So it's like we need to ask why? Why? What does it mean to me? Yeah. And then when you have that definition, put it down, be like, so this is what health looks like. Yeah, the person, they have their flaws, we all do. They have their moods, we all do. But maybe they have a little bit of an ability to maneuver through those things without quite so much distress and suffering and putting it off on others, Maybe they have a little bit of charisma themselves, but they don't exploit it. Maybe they have patience, but they're not a doormat. Define it for yourself. It's so important. So desire is absolutely the first one. And then we come to anger, because anger is the natural lead-off from desire, as I said before. Because when we say, I want a healthy partner, and I'm just going to stick with that because I think it's really just such a great example. I want a healthy partner. I thought this person would be a healthy partner, but I didn't really think it through. So now I'm angry because they're not living up to my expectations. But did you ever even tell them what your expectations were? Did you even know what they were? So we get angry, and most of the time we don't even know what we're getting angry over. Which tells us that we're not actually angry at that person. And we're not actually angry, not completely, at our own self. What we're angry about is ignorance. Ignorance makes us angry. The inability to know, the inability to be informed, to think wisely, to decide wisely, to live wisely, the inability to do that makes us angry. Because somewhere inside of ourselves, we know that we're quite capable of wisdom. It's inherent in us. It's just covered over by all these sheaths called the koshas. So our anger is at ignorance. That's what our anger is toward. We may point our finger and say, well, that person over there is ignorant and that's what's making me angry. But actually, it's our own ignorance that makes us angry. It's the existence of ignorance. When you know that there's a light switch that will put the light on, and yet you still walk in the room in the pitch black and hit your toe on the table and bang your knee on the corner of the chair. Ignorance. Why didn't I know? You did. You did know. But you didn't think it through. You didn't take the time to contemplate, to ask yourself the questions necessary to alleviate the ignorance just a little bit, to allow yourself to come into the light a little bit more. Anger is oftentimes also instigated by the conditions of the outside world. And this is a very tricky one, because shouldn't we want for the conditions in the outside world to be just, to be fair, to be more good than bad, to be more kind than unkind, to be more peaceful than violent? And of course we can wish for those things. But the reality is, it's not going to happen. The reality is, the outside world is going to be what the outside world is. And in some moments, there may be a little bit more peace than there is violence. But in other moments, there's going to be more violence than there's peace. And that's because the outside world is based in a chaotic system that cannot be predicted completely. Never will be able to be. It's the inside world that you're going to find the peace that you're seeking. We need to separate ourselves in a healthy way from the conditions of the outside world and go inside more. And what I mean by that is not to recoil from the opportunity to be of service, but to empower yourself to actually be of service in ways that are not detrimental to anyone, including yourself. Most oftentimes in today's world, there's this thing that volunteers go through called burnout. You go and, you work at the food kitchen or in the dog shelter and get burned out relatively quickly. And the reason for that is because the mindset is not right. The mindset is attached to the condition of the outside world. And with every can of dog food, with every plate of food to the human being, the thought in the mind is, why does it have to be this way? This world is a horrible place. The people that are doing this are horrible, that are making these conditions. They're horrible. We're complaining. And when our service comes from a place of complaint, then the service is short-lived because we get burnt out. But when we hand the dog food to the dog, the cat food to the cat, the human food to the human, and the only thing in our heart is that we feel with empathy that we wish for their suffering to end. And we wish to be part of that solution. There's no complaining there. There's only service. And then when we couple that with an understanding that there is an abundant amount of energy coming to you in every single moment, and you understand that the act of giving food to that which is needing the food is actually an act of divinity, then you're not depleted at all. As a matter of fact, you're restored. Because you don't see it as a burden put on your shoulders and your shoulders alone. This beautiful Om Brahmarpanam Brahmahavir Brahmagna Brahmanahutam Brahmeva Tena Gantavyam Brahma Karma Samadhina Aham Vaishvanaro Bhutva Praninam Deham Ashritaha Pranapana Samayukta Pachamyanam Chaturvidam. The Bhagavad Gita, the food blessing in the Bhagavad Gita, 2 verses. The first one says, everything is God. Everything is divinity. The food is divinity. The fire upon which the food is cooked is the fire of divinity. The fire within the belly of that which eats the food is divinity. The process of eating the food, it's all divinity. It all belongs to God. It doesn't belong to me. It belongs to God. So I'm just the conduit. The hose never gets tired of delivering water. You never get tired of delivering service because you understand that you're the delivery vehicle. It is not a burden on your shoulders. It's actually a beautiful gift to be able to use your hands and all of your faculties in the service of that which heals, rather than that which harms. And if that's the place where you come to your service from, you will never get tired. You will not get tired of your service. You will just continue on, because what else are you going to do? Look out into the world and say, why does it have to be this way? A question that there is not a satisfactory answer to. When is it going to change? When are these people going to stop asking me for things? When are these animals going to stop needing animal food? When are these human animals going to stop needing human animal food and shelter? When does it stop? As long as there's humans on the planet, it doesn't. Because we've created it. And now we're living with the consequences of our own behaviors. Maybe not your specific behavior, but still your behaviors. And the behaviors of all humans. Oh boy, that's a lot. That's a lot. No. So we need to understand anger. We need to understand how it arrives, how it takes over, how it fills the niches within us, where it's coming from, and what's feeding it within us. And then we can make some wise decisions about how to shift and change and maybe see things a little bit differently. Does that make sense? Yeah. So the next one is greed, and greed goes right along with desire as well. I have my little cheat sheet here because I want to make sure I hit them all. Sometimes I go off on my tangents and I'm like, I'll talk about anger for 4 hours, Greed. Yeah, and greed is, I had some of that, I liked it, I want some more. Gimme. But it doesn't have to necessarily be something that we like. We have greed over things we don't like also. We say, I had some of that, I didn't like it, but the consequence of it was popularity, was attention, was drama, and I'm addicted to that. So now I want more. Give me more of that. Give me more and more. More victimization, more violence, more anger, more desire, more lust, more something or another. Because the drama associated with it is so addictive. So we become greedy in that addiction. And we don't have to. We just don't have to, because there's no greater drug than God. There's no greater happiness. There's no greater beauty. There's no greater energy of joy. There's no greater satisfaction than that which God gives us in relationship. But every time we turn and say, no, I like the gossip, because the gossip, it's the drama, that's nothing. That's not even a spit in the bucket. That's not even a grain on a beach of sand. That's nothing in comparison to what your relationship with divinity will bring to you. So as they say, put away the childish toys. Put away the childish behaviors, the childish impressions, and look for the big game. Look for that one, for that which is going to fulfill you. You think you get a high, at the cooler when everybody comes to you, at work, at the water cooler, when everybody comes and says, so what's today's scoop? And you feel all important and stuff, But that's so false and fake, and it's going to fade the moment you walked away from the water cooler. The moment somebody else is in the know and you're not. It's so temporary. It's so not real. It's so false. But it's not false. Divinity. It's not temporary. Divinity. You know what is 100% absolute satisfaction? Divinity. And all you have to do to know that is break through the barriers and obstacles of an unhealthy ego, sit down in your meditation seat, close your eyes, and be with that. That'll be another session. Because that's hard. It's hard. Because the mind rants and raves and goes on and on and on. Don't you remember when? Don't you remember when? Don't you remember when? And you're like, no, anchor myself back in the moment. Anchor myself back in the moment. There's nothing greater than that. There's no greater happiness. There's no greater joy. There's not. And then once you start to see and understand and know that in your heart, not just your mind, but in your heart, then something happens in life. And it's really interesting because a lot of teachers say, abstain, 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 abstain. And yes, you do need to some degree. But at some point, if your practice becomes parasadhana, supreme practice, then what happens is, whatever you do, you find enjoyment in. Whatever you do, you see God in. Whatever you do, whether you're cooking breakfast, serving at the dog shelter, treading through the swamp, the muck and the mud, trying to be the lotus flower, on your yoga mat, trying to stand on your head or draw your knees to your chest, whatever you're doing, gardening, arguing, whatever, debating, whatever you're doing, you find God there. And you eventually see that God permeates everything everywhere, without exception. The only one closing their eyes to it is you, in your life. So open your eyes and see more of that and less of the rest. Because the rest of it is child's play. And you're at the big people's table. Remember that when you were a kid? Right? There was the kids' table, right? And then there was the adult table. And sometimes the adult table had a lot more drama than the kids' table. Not too long ago, I was at a little bit of a family reunion thing, and I just wanted to be with the kids. And then we have Mada, the ego. And of course, the ego is not bad. So when you hear teachers talk about the ego and they're just like, cut off the ego, kill the ego, annihilate the ego, you can't. You're not going to annihilate the ego. You're not going to cut off the ego. The ego is a natural consequence of you being an embodied individual, of you being a jivatman. You have an ego. Ahamkara is the divine ego. Divinity, when it's embodied, has an ego. The ego is a consequence of embodiment and of the mental embodiment. But the ego has at least two conditions, probably more. But it is either healthy or it is unhealthy. And so when they say things like annihilate the ego, what they're saying is, when you feel like you need to cleanse, you do a cleanse because you want to feel healthier. Well, if you want to be healthier mentally, then cleanse your ego. Get rid of the stuff that's unhealthy. Change it. Do something about it. Don't just sit there and say, well, there's that thought again. I guess it's just going to keep coming back to me. No. Don't accept that. Say, there's that thought again. Now I will think something else instead. I will choose my thought, thank you. Because I'm the one who's governing this body and this mind. I am the one. I am the leader in my body and mind. I am the president. I am the governor. I am whatever title you want to put that. I'm the supreme one in this body and mind. And so I am the one who can make the decisions about what it's going to think, the impressions it's going to accept, how it's going to respond and react. Sometimes it's a primal thing. Sometimes you react out of primacy, and that's very difficult to control. But those things that can be controlled should be, because otherwise it leads us right back down that alleyway to suffering, to feeling like we've made mistakes, taken actions that we regret. And so keeping the ego healthy, how do we do that? Well, we stop behaving in ways that are unhealthy. That's the number one thing. It's so obvious, right? That's what I love about yoga, Ayurveda, Advaita Vedanta, Tantra, Sanatana Dharma. It's obvious. It's just so obvious that it goes right over our head. If you want your ego to be healthy, then stop behaving in unhealthy ways. Stop feeding the unhealthy part of it. Just like you have a friend who drinks too much and you say you have to drink less or not at all. It's so obvious when you're talking to somebody else. You say, well, why am I suffering? Well, because you're behaving in unhealthy ways. You're thinking in unhealthy ways. You're not thinking in healthy ways. So you have to change it. And then when you change it, well, but what if it doesn't work? Well, you won't know unless you try. I can sit here and tell you 15,000 times, if you change the way you think, your life will change. But no one's going to know that's the truth. No one's going to experience that as the truth unless you try it. You have to try it. And this is what the Mother Durga continually told to Mahishasura's attendant, who kept bringing all these generals trying to defeat her and get her to come back to Mahishasura to be his consort, his wife. You know, she kept saying, tell him he has to be the one. He has to defeat me in battle. Not his generals, not his colonels, not his military force. No, I've demolished all of those. He has to defeat me in battle. And it took him a really long time, like thousands of years, to finally show up to the battle. And in the end, he lost anyway. He lost to her, though. He lost to her, which is not a loss. He lost to her, which is not a loss. If he continued to lose to himself, to his own unhealthy ego, that would have been the loss. So you have to show up and stop losing to the rest of the world. Stop losing to the unhealthy aspect of your ego and instead surrender to the truth of the inner self, to the Atman, to the consciousness that flows within you that is none other than that one divinity. Yeah? Surrender to that. Lose yourself to that. And then life will be much different. But I can say that 10,000 ways from Sunday, and it won't mean anything unless you do it. And you can go and repeat it. You can tell your, we had this great conversation in Wisdom Circle this morning. Swamini said this, and this. You should try it. You can point the finger at anybody you want and tell them to do it, and you still will not know the value of it until you do it. You must do it. And then we think, I don't know if I want to. I mean, I could give up the cigarettes and the alcohol, but I don't know about the sex or the other stuff. You try to pick and choose and make your little shopping basket. This is what I'm going to give away, and this is what I'm going to keep. And as long as that's the approach that we take, as long as the approach is half-hearted, then the result will be half-hearted. But the moment that we make up our mind to dive in completely and to say, you know what, I'm just going to give this a go. Just like when you're on that tire swing, swinging out into the river or the creek, right? At some point, you just jump off and you go in the water. So let this be the jump off point where you say, I'm not going to hold on anymore. I'm just going to find out myself. I'm going to find out for myself what happens when I go all for it, all in, 100%. That's it. And will you stumble? Yes. Will you take a couple of steps backward? Yes. But then you say to yourself, I'm diving in. I'm diving in. I'm diving in. I'm giving my everything and my all to this. No more ignorance. I'm turning on the light switch. I'm not going to bang my knee or my big toe anymore. Or my pinky toe. Poor little pinky toe. My pinky toe's been broken like 7 times in my life. Oh, poor thing. There's a light switch on the wall. There's a light switch right at the heart also. But to turn on that switch, you have to go all in. It's either the heart or it's the ego. Can't be both. It's like you can't be in the North Pole and the South Pole at the same time. You can only be in one. You're either in the heart or you're in the ego. And if you're in the ego, then it's the unhealthy ego most oftentimes. Because the healthy ego is going to what? It's going to say, go to your heart. Don't be with me. I'm not good company. Go to your heart. Your heart is the greatest of companies. Because the heart is where God lives. The goddess lives. Where you live. The real you. Not the you that you put out to the world. Attachment. Moha. And that's what we're talking about here, right? We're talking about attachment. Because desire is an attachment. It's saying, I want this, I don't want that. So the attachment of things, that we actually grasp it with our hands, attached to social media, right? Attached to our computers, attached to our attitudes, to our stories, to our opinions, attached to our judgments. Attachment. If we can just loosen that noose a little bit, not be so attached. Everybody has to think like me, otherwise this world is no good. Everybody has to be like me, otherwise this world is no good. Or something even a little bit more interesting. Everybody has to think correctly, but I don't. Because the moment I go out and somebody aggravates me, I can be the problem, part of the problem, and I don't have to call myself on it, but I will call you on it. And we all do that, don't we? We say, I want this world to be a particular way, and everybody who thinks against that is the problem. And yet we go out, and what happens? We get into arguments, we judge people, we cut people off, we steal people's parking spots, and, we just do. We look for the shortcut. We walk a little faster to get in line first in front of the other person, even if it's an elder. Right? We don't hold doors open for people. We're impatient. We are the problem. We don't really care what other people do. It's not really what matters to us. What we're angry about is what we have done and have not done. But we look at other people and say, you. Well, if the rest of the world would fall in line, then I could finally do it. And that's a load of crap. The rest of the world can fall in line, can fall out of line. It doesn't matter. That doesn't dictate what you do. What dictates what you do is you. You. So this attachment, this preference, it's just really a slippery slope and a very difficult thing to overcome. Because our go-to is blame. Our go-to is to point the finger and to say, well, you made me do this. It was your fault. When the reality is we had a choice. We could have yelled back or we could have walked away. We could have held the door open or we could have slammed it closed. We could have taken a breath or we could have sent out a punch. It's our choice what we do. We could have stayed. We could have left. We could say yes. We could say no. We could say no. We could say yes. That's our choice. What about in those moments where there really isn't a choice, though? There's always a choice. There really is always a choice. And the choice may not be obvious in that moment of crisis, but that moment of crisis can be the beginning of the making of a choice. The hardest thing in the world is for a woman or a child and a man to leave an abusive relationship. But in a moment of crisis, when one has that realization, I am being abused, that is the moment of decisiveness. Now I start to figure out what to do, how to ask for help, how to get what I need. And sometimes that moment doesn't come easily or quickly. It's really a very complicated matter. And it's not a blame game. It's not saying, well, if she would only make the decision. No. If he would only make the decision. No. It's much more complicated than that. The only thing that I'm asking you to consider right now is that there does eventually come a moment where the individual sees clearly what's happening, and that is the moment of opportunity to begin the decision cycle. The time has come for a decision to be made, but now I have to figure out how. And everything prior to that is karma, working itself out. Nobody likes to hear that. I know it. Because in this world today, we've made karma into such a bad thing. But it's not. Karma is not a payback system. Karma is action. Karma is action and consequence. And consequence is not bad. It's not good. It's just what it is. If I took this phone and threw it in that direction, is that good or bad? It's neither. It hits poor Crystal. Unintended consequence.
Bad for me.
For Crystal. But I threw the phone, right? So now there's a karma. Another karma, and another karma, and another karma, because now I've hit her with the phone. And that has to play itself out. It's the boulder that's started rolling down the hill. And it's going to roll until it doesn't roll anymore. So I either act like, oh, it doesn't matter, and that creates more karma. Now it's picking up speed. Or I get up and I go, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that. Are you okay? What can I do to make this right? I take responsibility. That also has karma. That also makes the boulder roll faster. And who knows what's going to happen after that? Maybe she throws her phone back at me. Or maybe she accepts my apology. Who knows? We don't know. But it's all karma. It's all karma. So making a blanket statement like, I hit you so you'll hit me, that's an ignorant statement and it's not the truth. Because sometimes you hit somebody and then you say you're sorry and they accept your apology. So cause and effect, action and consequence is not as clear as we think it is. It's a very complicated matter. But this whole idea of attachment and of everything else that we've talked about today is tied right into it. Tied right into karma playing itself out. Your breath in is a karma. Your breath out is a karma. And everything that happens in between is karma. And karma will continue to play out until all the consequences have been had. Whether they're good, bad, or indifferent. So there's no sense in being attached. And in the Tattva Bodha, I believe it is, this one of the Swamijis, they all say it for the most part, say the wise one is the one who stands back, and this is particularly from Swami Dayananda's version, commentary. The wise one is the one who steps back and does not become involved in the behaviors of karma because they realize karma is only playing itself out. They don't need to be involved. It will eventually finish itself. So be that person. Don't be attached. Let the karma play itself out. And don't talk about it either. Don't be like, oh, look, there's that karma playing itself out. Let's watch. They deserved that, didn't they? No, because that's karma too, right? If you're going to wish anything for people, wish peace. May you be at peace. May you be at peace. Jealousy. Jealousy is another. I'm going to do a quick time check. Okay, we have 2 minutes. Let's see if I can do these last two in 2 minutes. Jealousy. So you all understand. And how many people in here experience jealousy? Yeah. Two hands up, people. 2 hands up. We all experience jealousy because we all look out and say, oh, that one's younger, that one's older, that one's richer, that one's poorer, that one gets more attention, that one gets... Everything that we look at cultivates jealousy within us because we've been taught through our life that we're not enough. And so that sense of lack that we have had just beaten into us, basically, is what leads us to be jealous. Because if we think that we are not enough, we want what's going to alleviate that. And that leads us to become jealous of anything and anyone who appears to have what we don't. So you have to change the internal narrative. I am enough. I don't need to be jealous. I can actually be grateful that so-and-so won the lottery, that so-and-so got a new job, that I didn't get the promotion my coworker did. Be grateful for their abundance rather than jealous of it. Because jealousy is a fire that will burn you into ash. Oh my goodness. And it's a painful burning. It really is. Because then you and your co-employee are going for the same promotion and they get the promotion. And suddenly that monster jealousy shows up. Now all of a sudden, this person is your enemy. This person has taken something from you that you wanted. And there's no gratitude for however this might serve them. That maybe this was actually supposed to be for them and not for you. There's no way for you to have that kind of appreciation or gratitude because the ego is so consumed in its own anger over being jilted out of this opportunity. Now you can never see this person through clear eyes without a significant change of heart. You will forever look at this person, or almost forever, look at this person through the eyes of competition, vengefulness, resentment. So how can you be at peace with that person? You won't be. And as long as you're not at peace with that individual, you will not be at peace with yourself. Now, another scenario, you and your coworker are going for that, and you see that your coworker has got a couple of steps ahead of you, so you kick it up, and you get that promotion, and you hate it. Because you took something that did not belong to you. You took something that was meant for somebody else. Jealousy. It's quicksand. It's quicksand. And it's all-encompassing quicksand. And similarly, the last of these, the seventh, there's 6 listed, but then there's the 7th one. Laziness. Jealousy is laziness. Jealousy is saying, I want what you have. I don't want what I have. Because I don't want to work with what I have. Instead, I want the ease of what you have. Because it sure looks easy to have a nice car, to have a promotion, to have a partner. So many people would come up to me and they would say, oh, I'm so jealous of your relationship with your husband. It's like the perfect relationship. And I would stop them right there. And I would say, well, first of all, thank you for your kind words. But second of all, you don't know. We worked at our relationship. We accepted the responsibility of our relationship. We went to couples counseling and to family counseling because we had a blended family. We wanted to make it work. We wanted to love each other the way we promised and to not get caught up in hating each other through jealousy or envy or anything else, boredom. So we worked at it. There was no laziness in our relationship in that regard. Laziness will only cultivate jealousy, and jealousy will only bring about your own laziness. Because jealousy is a symptom of, I don't want what I have because I don't want to do that work. Instead, I want what you have so I can have it easy. But nothing is easy. And whenever you meet someone, they are never exactly what they appear. You have no idea of the details of their life, of what they've been through, of how hard they've worked, of where they've made mistakes. So be patient with people, be kind to people, be generous with people. Be a light in the darkness. Don't contribute to their excuses for their behavior, and don't contribute to your own. Instead, look for yourself. Look for a greater happiness, a more true peace, and find that through your relationship with divinity. Dive deep into your practice and don't worry about what the rest of the world thinks, because today's fad will be gone tomorrow. Their opinions about you today will be different tomorrow. Their opinions will always change. The only thing that will be constant is what your heart is asking you for. But you got to clear away all these other things first so that you can actually hear it. Okay, I will stop there. Reflections or questions? Pretty straightforward. Yeah. Let's sit tall. Close the eyes. Draw the hands together in front of the heart. May we all wish for the awakening of all beings everywhere and work to empower that awakening with love, with devotion, and with light emanating from the truth of ourself. May we draw the unhealthy ego into that healing light and allow it to evolve. May we come to see ourselves for the truth of ourselves, for the goodness and the grace. Lifting our voices in one Om, taking a breath in. Om. Om Shri Matre Namaha. Thank you all so much for being here today. So good to see each and every one of you. And Crystal, I would never throw my phone at you.
I throw mine right back.
We'll just play catch.